Well, good morning. Our leadership series continues. I'm joined today by EM3 Erica Carey. We're here in Newport, Rhode Island. Erica is assigned to the Coast Guard Cutter WILLOW, and as we talk about my leadership philosophy, we talk about knowing your purpose, standards matter, trust and empower your people, take decisive action. Today we're going to focus a little bit on standards matter, but first you need to get to know our interviewee today, EM3 Erica Carey. Erica, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Edwin. I was graduated boot camp, and then I went to the Coast Guard Cutter Shearwater out of Portsmouth, Virginia, and then I decided on either going OS or EM, two opposite spectrums, and then I decided EM. When I graduated, I went to the Willow. Before the Willow and before the Coast Guard, I'd never touched anything electrical.
Yeah, and before I joined the Coast Guard, I knew nothing at all about being the Commandant, so life is always a learning journey for us. So Erica, you've decided to focus on standards matter as a principle of leadership. Tell me a little bit about what standards matter, what that means to you.
Well, I think especially as a new third or even a new non-rate coming to a unit, you always need that baseline, like what the Coast Guard's actually about as you step foot through the door or through scuttle, whatever you want to consider going through. Because when I first joined, you hear about all the things that you're going to do, and then when you get there, they're like, oh, here are qualifications, and then you have to uphold all this. And I think as much as everyone's like, well, there's always a new policy, I actually enjoy it because I know what I have to live up to and what I can try and reach beyond.
Yeah, and those are all great points. One, you can't be a technician if we don't have standards, and one, you can't lead if we don't have standards either to hold people to those standards. And I always talk about teachable moments, about making mistakes when it comes to standards. And let's face it, our learning journey, we trip, we fall, we get up, we move on. But then there's another distinction of mistakes, and that comes to our core values. So, if someone were to assault me and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, a little bit different. That's a different kind of mistake. But tell me a little bit about teachable moments and making mistakes and how that applies to standards.
Well, I think when I first got to the Willow, I'm a very naturally quiet person, so I didn't want to ask anyone for help. And I was all worried because I was trying to get this job done, trying to rush to do it. And I want to say third week, we were ice breaking in the Hudson, and my chief goes, hey, there's a couple light bulbs up forward. Maybe just grab the other third, and you guys, because there's a lot of them, so you guys don't want to just carry the light bulbs on your own. So I was like, okay, well, to me, I'm like, it's a box of light bulbs. I can do it. And I'm going through all the doors and undogging them, and then I'm going through the scuttles, and then all of a sudden the box of light bulbs just happens to drop and shatter everywhere.
Oh.
And I was devastated. I'm looking at the ground and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then this little voice in my head was like, well, if you just asked for help and just weren't afraid, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And I think that kind of comes with everything, especially with standards, or if you're not really sure about where you're supposed to go and what direction, that's why those people are there. You don't have to be scared to ask everyone at the unit. They're not against you. It's just more because you're the new guy. Obviously, they're going to look at you a little bit different, but you can still ask questions. You can still ask what they expect of you.
So Willow set darkened ship from that point on because you had no light bulbs for the remainder of that ice-breaking mission. Well, that's a great life learning journey, and it reminds me of when we talk about trusting and empowering people as well. And I sent a letter to every commanding officer, every officer in charge, is that you've got to empower other people, because if you bear all of that responsibility, the weight of that responsibility will either take you to your knees, or in your case, maybe we drop a box of light bulbs. But along the way, it's a teachable moment, and we learn from that as well. When we talk about leadership lessons, and usually the best leadership lessons are usually ones that you can encapsulate in a story. Is a story that come to mind when it comes to leadership that you've experienced in the Coast Guard, and whether it applies to standards or not? From the perspective of someone who's relatively junior, what that leadership lesson was, and maybe you were the leader, or maybe you were the follower. Are there any life lessons that come to mind, Erica?
Actually, Admiral, there's one that I always kind of replay in my head whenever I get in like a certain situation, and it's actually from my direct supervisor right now, and I forget exactly what we were working on. The details are a little blurry, but we were working on something and we just couldn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally was getting frustrated because I was like, this is so easy, like we need to fix this. And we fixed thousands of things on the Willow, from things that would keep us from getting underway even in less time than we fixed this one item. And we're like, why can't we get this? Why can we not figure this one out? And my supervisor, rather than showing any emotion or any he wasn't frustrated, he wasn't upset, he was just retracing everything. And it's tedious. And to be honest, Admiral, it sucks because you're working for hours straight and you're like, no, we already did that. We already did this. We already did that. And it turns out that it was the first thing that we checked. And after that, I go back into the shop and I was like, man, EM1, I don't get it. I don't get where we went wrong with that. We checked it 1,000 times. And he was like, Carey, did you at one point ever see me get upset? I was like, no. And he was like, did you ever see me show anything? And he was like, I was mad. And I was like, who knew? I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And he was like, because if I demonstrated that to you, your mind would have gone even more blurry. Mm. You were already not focusing on the task at hand because you were already so mad. And I was like, you're right. He was like, you have to try and push away emotions when you get frustrated with something and just focus on what you actually want to do. And to me, every time I'm about to get mad, I just hear my EM1 focus.
That's a great lesson. There's actually, believe it or not, physiology that goes with this. There's a part of your brain, and it's called the amygdala. There's not going to be a test on this afterwards, but it's the fight or flight syndrome. But what happens is, if you start expressing a lot of emotion, your anger takes over. It shuts down the frontal cortex of your brain, and your rational thought shuts down because all you want to do is use all your energy, to, in this case, run away. But it doesn't allow you to do something that's very tedious, very challenging. Well, it's been a delight to have Erica here. She didn't say a whole lot about herself, other than the fact that she wasn't an electrician before she came in. But she qualified, probably one of the quickest to qualify aboard Willow when she arrived. And believe it or not, in her first year on there, she was the sailor of the quarter. And it's rare that you get someone brand new to a ship, and then you are unanimously selected to be the sailor of the quarter. To me, that says a lot about your leadership potential. Even more so because I expect in a few months we will not be talking to EM3 Erica Carey, it will be EM2 Erica Carey. Erica, I want to thank you for your leadership, for your commitment to our service, your service to our nation, and for continuing on your leadership journey in our Coast Guard. And I want to thank everyone out there for joining us, and Semper Paratus. Great to be with you. Thank you.